Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I doing now? I had a doctor's appointment, another one. But what I want to talk to you about, is cars that you can afford to actually drive. And I see this way too often. I gotta straighten this out a little bit. I see this happen way too often, and I feel like I need to talk about this. When you buy a car, make sure it's something you can afford to repair. If you're buying a used car for certain, even a new car if you plan on keeping it beyond the warranty. What do I mean by this? All right. Well, let's say you need a car. Go to a Hyundai or Kia dealership, or Honda or Toyota or Nissan or whoever. No, preferably not Nissan, because they don't make anything worth anything nowadays. And price out the cheapest car they have and see what it's going to cost you for payments and insurance and everything else. Can you afford that car? Okay. If that's a car you can afford, now you want to buy a used car, make sure that you have that budget set for, like, say, that used car, that new car rather. So let's say your total payments were going to be, I don't know, let's just say $500 a month between your insurance and everything else. And imagine how much you had to put down. Now, you decide you want something nicer, so you decide to go with a used car. And you make the horrible decision, probably the worst decision of your life. And you decide to buy, let's just pick one, an Audi Q Series midsize SUV. Looks great, runs and drives great. What's going to cost to fix that thing? Okay. Now you just took a loan out on it too, because it still fits in your budget of what that Nissan Sentra was going to cost, or that Honda Civic or Fit or whatever, or Kia, whatever the heck they have. I don't even remember, the Forte, whatever their little vehicle is. So say it still fits in your budget. Okay, but now you have a car with no warranty. So what's going to cost to fix it? Now the reason I picked the Audi there, just had this happen. Had a customer come in with an Audi Q5? I don't recall. It's whatever the midsize SUV is. And the battery went bad in it. Instead of buying a battery right away, she bought a booster pack. You know, one of those, I used to have one in here. I think I left it at home. One of those small little booster packs that I used to jumpstart the Saturn with. Okay, those are fine. Those work great. However, they're not meant to replace the battery. They're meant for, hey, I killed my battery here or there, or, hey, my battery is no good and I got to get from point A to point B, and then I'll put a battery in it and you use it to jumpstart your vehicle. That's fine. This person was using this jump starter every single time, and they used it for several weeks. Well, guess what? Now all of a sudden it had to get towed in. It got towed into us. We got to start with a battery. So first off, they weren't happy about the price of the battery. Right there is a red flag. If you're not happy with the price of the battery on a particular car that you're buying, then you're probably not going to be happy with other repairs that have to be done to it. So the reason it had to get towed in was because she couldn't shut it off. Once she figured out how to shut it off, she was afraid to start it again. That's why she towed it to us. Okay, fair enough. I understand that. You know, she doesn't know where she's going to get stuck or whatever. She's only had this thing several months, you know, half a year, whatever it was. But she hadn't had it a year. So she gets it towed in. We price out the battery, put a battery in it. And like I said, she wasn't happy with the price of the battery. So we get the car up and running. And yeah, same thing. It wouldn't shut off. But if you held the button, it was a push to start. If you held the button, it would then shut down after like holding it for like 3 seconds or 4 seconds, whatever it was. It would then shut down. However, the speedometer didn't work. The brake light was on, ABS light was on, traction control light was on, steering light was on, stability, I don't know if I mentioned that. Like, it was a Christmas tree on the dashboard. That was the other reason she towed it in, because that happened. All right, so we gave it a preliminary diagnosis and looking at the codes, and it was like a bunch of communication codes, and it all stemmed right back to the ABS module. And guess where the ABS module is located on that particular vehicle? Underneath the battery in the engine compartment. Okay. So we told her, okay, well, for us to go there and actually start pin testing and stuff like that, because you got to check voltages and grounds and everything else. I went through and checked all the fuses and everything else was fine. But for us to go down there and actually physically check everything, it's going to get time consuming. So we need a minimum of a couple hours labor just to do this. She goes nuts. What do you mean? I can't afford this. Well, it's your car. It's not our car. You just bought it. Not our problem. But this is where we need to start if you want to do this. Well, she was hemming and hawing about it. She didn't want to do it. So we finally said, talking to her amongst ourselves, and we're like, we're not working on this car because this is just going to turn into a nightmare. That's what usually happens. So we told her, well, we're sorry, but you're going to have to bring it to the dealership. We feel that this thing's, at least I felt it's probably going to need an ABS module. It probably fried the ABS module for whatever reason. Probably voltage spikes from using a jump starter constantly. And I personally felt it probably fried the ABS module. And the ABS module, like everything communicates with one another. And I think that was creating all the other problems. So she was quite upset. She's like, I can't afford the dealership. Then why do you own the car? German cars are great. I would never own one unless it was the right deal. I'll tell you that right now. I would never own one unless it's the right deal. German cars, as long as they're under warranty, are fantastic cars. They make a wonderful product. However, there is no such thing as a cheap German car repair. No such thing. It does not exist. Even oil changes can get pricey on German cars. European cars. Heck, I'm Swedish. I wouldn't own a Volvo. An older one, yeah. Newer one, no way. It just gets way too pricey. And we see it all the time. People buy these things and they can't afford to fix them. So try to stay within a budget when you're buying these cars and anticipate, if you're buying a German car, you should probably have $5,000 just sitting in the bank for repairs, because at some point, especially if you got something like this thing had 110,000 miles on it, it was a clean car at 110,000, and that kind of throws a flag. Like, did somebody just happen to get rid of this thing at the right time, or did they foresee issues happening with it? Who the heck knows? It had other issues too, but we never bothered to get involved with any of those. We had a Mercedes something or other, same scenario, where it needed something with the tailgate. My camera mount is slowly sliding down my dashboard. I don't know if you noticed, like I have to keep fixing this, but I realized I'm gonna have to get a new one because it's sliding down my dashboard. Anyway, this Mercedes, it had an issue with the tailgate. No. Drawing a blank here, hold on. I know I said dashboard on the camera mount, but it's actually mounted to the windshield, and it's hot. I don't know what the temperature is, but it's slowly sliding down. Anyway, so this Mercedes had a problem with the tailgate. Same thing. It needed whatever the electric thing that creates the opening and closing. The motor had shorted out, and it was some ridiculous amount of money, and the customer went crazy. Like, I can't afford that. Again, why do you own the car? If you're buying a car, a foreign car, any car, actually, if you're buying any car, anything, do some research on the car you're buying. If you, for some reason, decide that you want a Nissan Altima, let's say, another one of the worst decisions you can make in your life is buying a Nissan Altima. If you decide that you absolutely have to have a Nissan Altima for whatever reason, Google it. You don't have to look for your particular vehicle, but Google that year. Let's say you got a 2012 Nissan Altima. Google it and see what comes up. reliability, problems. Google 2012 Nissan Altima problems. And when transmission pops up first thing, don't be surprised. It's very rare to find those things with more than, say, 50,000 miles not needing a transmission. I can honestly tell you, I've probably never seen one over 200,000 where it hasn't had at least one transmission, if not two. And they're not cheap. People for some reason think transmissions are cheap. They are not cheap. A transmission for a Nissan Altima is going to set you back a good $5-6 grand. A used one will set you back $4, and that's with labor. So it's like the car that you think you're getting a great deal on may not really be such a great deal. It may not be. So it's just something to think about. Do a little research, do a little homework, stay within a budget of what you can afford. Just because you have, let's just say you have 10 grand in the bank to put towards a car, and you could buy this, let's just say Honda Fit. The Honda Fit's 20 grand for a relatively new one with a warranty and everything else. But hey, here's a 2015 Mercedes M Series. I can get that for 20 grand also. It's got 197,000 miles on it, but it's a Mercedes. It should last forever, and I should not have to put any money into a repair, right? Right? Volkswagens, for example. We had a lady come in with a Tiguan, 2-liter, I think it was. You ever do a water pump on one of those? Woohoo! Yeah, that's a big dollar repair right there. And people just don't get it. They just, they think that everything's going to be cheap, and then they blame us like it's our fault. No, it's not our fault. I actually, what was it? Hold on a second. Let me pause you because there's something I'm thinking about. I just can't remember it. Hold on one second. That's what I was thinking. I haven't told you yet, but I know what it was. For some reason, people come into us and they get all upset when we tell them, okay, well, in order for us to diagnose your car, it's going to be X amount of money. We have an initial diagnostic fee of $99. That is, scan the codes and give it a preliminary look over, give it a preliminary, hey, you got an O2 code. Let's see if it's switching and doing what it's supposed to on the scanner. This is a scanner. I'm just going, stuff like that. Because 999 times out of 1,000, when you have something like that with an O2 sensor, it's an O2 sensor. So we can usually look at the scanner and say, okay, yeah, this O2 is acting funky. Let's put an O2 sensor in it. So it's a $99 diagnostics, then it's the labor and whatever. Excuse me. But then you have vehicles where, I hit a bump, my radio goes out. Okay. We're going to have to verify what's going on. We may have to drive it several times. It's not going to be a 1, 2, 3 repair. So we need time to look at it, diagnose it, figure out what's going on. And people, for some reason, they're like, oh, I'm not paying diagnostics. Okay, go somewhere else. I don't care. I don't care. They, for some reason, think that we should work for free. And I actually had somebody one time tell me, you mechanics, you charge so much, and you must be making millions of dollars. Yeah, I'm making millions of dollars. I'm driving a Dodge Caravan with almost 300,000 miles on it. I have a Dodge pickup truck with almost 300,000 miles on it. I bought a house that was built in 1972. Yeah, I must be making a ton of money. Come on. Now, if you go to a shop and they want to charge you a lot of money and you see the owner driving around in a brand new Lamborghini or something like that, then, obviously something's askew. Could he have hit the lottery and bought that? Sure, absolutely. I knew a guy who owned a shop who owned an AC Cobra. That's $1 million car now, but back in the day, it was still a $100,000 car. He owned one, but it's because of his love for cars. It wasn't because he overcharged people. And his family, he had money to begin with. He owned his shop and everything else, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't understand why people, for some reason, think that mechanics should not charge labor. to diagnose stuff. Whoa, I can go to AutoZone and they'll diagnose it for me. Okay, go ahead, go to AutoZone, let them diagnose it. We'll put in the parts that you want us to put in. And when that doesn't fix it, don't cry to us. I can't tell you how often that happens. I had somebody come in, they had an evap leak code, and they're like, oh, I keep going back, and we've already replaced the gas cap 3 times. Well, yeah, because it's not the gas cap. Well, then what could it be? I don't know. Got to diagnose it. AutoZone told you it was a gas cap. Well, 3 times, and it still didn't fix the problem. That should tell you it's not the gas cap. Speaking of gas caps, and I don't know why this is. I don't know how this even makes a difference, but I've seen this more times than you can imagine. Gas caps, the locking style, the old style ones, that have a key that go in it to unlock it, for some reason, and I don't know why, a lot of times when I see vehicles coming in with evap system leaks and I have those type of gas caps on it, aftermarket, it could even be a relatively new one, for some reason or other, I find a lot of those are creating that problem. Not sure why. I don't have a rhyme or reason for it, just a side note there. I think that's all I really want to discuss right now. But, yeah, so stay within your budget and question your mechanic. Question me. I got no problem with it. I can only do so much. I can only do so much with the time you've given me and to stay within your budget. I try to fix stuff and stay within your budget too, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, you only want to spend, say, $500, but sometimes it's going to be like, no, I need more time. I can't just say, with 100% certainty, yes, this is going to fix it, and I just diagnosed whatever. Sometimes it takes time to do things like that. I had that one Ford F-150 it kept on having these issues with the valve body, with the solenoids, and I found broken wiring or rubbed through wiring. I found a connector that was no good. And every time I fixed something, it got better. But it still had the problem of like going into limp mode. And eventually I found it was a solenoid in the training. And the customer was mad at me. Like, why didn't I find a solenoid first? Well, I found all these other problems that were directly related to this issue. It's like you have to go down the line. It's not always clear cut. So anyway, my phone mount is still just sliding down the dashboard, the windshield. So I'm going to end this video here. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you like my videos, if you could, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. Hit that like button. Click on the links that you see below. I'm not asking you to buy anything, but clicking on it does help. I'm going to show you this mount here real quick. See it? I was just sliding down, and it's actually, the thing is cockeyed. That thing used to be in a straight line, and it just kind of like went like this. Like this, yeah, okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.